Due to ShowPro's aggressive copyright takedown policy, this re-upload will be audio only, with the fully edited version available to my patrons, link in the description below. And so we come to the last entry in the Takeshi Shudo trilogy of Pokemon films, Spell of the Unown. This is the first one that I don't have as much nostalgia for simply because I didn't watch it as much as Mewtwo Strikes Back or Pokemon 2000, so it's interesting to come back to it as an adult and see what I was missing out on. Did it surpass my expectations? Let's take a look. Molly Hale is the daughter of an esteemed Pokemon researcher, but tragedy strikes when her father disappears while doing research on the mysterious Pokemon called the Unown. Heartbroken, Molly desperately tries to bring her father back by digging through his research and accidentally unleashes the Unown at her house, covering the entire place in a fantastical crystal-like substance. What's more, the Unown manifests the appearance of the legendary Pokemon Entei, whom Molly believes is her father, and sends him out to kidnap Ash's mother, whom she mistakes for her own mom who disappeared sometime in the past. Now Ash and friends must break into the crystalline mansion in order to rescue both his mom and Molly from the power of the Unknown. Much like 2000, Spell of the Unown isn't exactly super heavy on its thematic elements like Mewtwo Strikes Back was, but it's not entirely shallow either. It's a very structured action-adventure film with a lot of exciting set pieces to keep you engaged, and it's nice to see Misty and Brock play a bigger role in these moments instead of just sitting in the background. What caught me off guard though was that there are actually a lot of straightforward Pokemon battles in this one, which I just realized was a bit absent from 2000. Granted, a lot of them are just tearing fodder, but it's nice to see nonetheless. There is still a bit of meat to sink your teeth into though with the actual plot. Molly's imaginary Entei and the crystal she uses to isolate herself from the outside world are great metaphors for the machinations of a child's mind left unchecked. And as the film goes on, we slowly see Molly realize that the world she imagines for herself still can't live up to the real thing. A pretty good message for kids who feel isolated and are afraid to venture out into the world. However, I do have to take issue with one particular moment that happens during the end credits. I won't spoil it for you if you haven't seen it, but basically a certain character returns at the very end when it would have been much more thematically cohesive to just leave that character out entirely. In fact, this only happened because a different writer had to take over for Shudo while he was taking care of personal business, so it does kind of stick out as not fitting with the rest of the film. It's not a huge deal breaker, but the lost potential does annoy me a bit. Entei definitely manages to stand out as an antagonist though. There's nothing evil or sinister about his actions, a nice change of pace to differentiate himself from what's come before. He just wants to make Molly happy in whatever way he can, and this just happens to make him the antagonist of the story. And the way he changes throughout the film based on Molly's perspective on what's happening is pretty entertaining. The Unknown acting as this intangible force throughout the movie also creates this constant sense of unease, while also lending to a much more creative setting. Visually, the film definitely feels like it's trying to push its own limits, which is both a good and bad thing at times. There's a ton going on with the cinematography in this movie, and the almost excessive amount of zooms and pans really works well in creating a more immersive and detailed environment. I also found it interesting how much more they rely on multiple moving parts in the background elements to create the illusion of camera movement. Not everything is fine and dandy though. Throughout the entire film, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with the color direction. I even tried messing with the picture settings on my TV and checking out multiple different streaming sources to make sure it wasn't just me, and there are some serious color balancing issues in this film that pop out from time to time. It doesn't always happen, and the moments where they get it right can turn out absolutely gorgeous, but when rapid and constant lighting changes involved, it can become a bit of a muddled mess in terms of what object is supposed to be which color, and the CG set builds end up exacerbating the problem even more. The most surprising element of all though was how intense the soundtrack was for this film. There's not a lot of variation in its sound to give it a fuller experience, but the sheer intensity of some of these tracks can be pretty astounding, though this also ends up as a bit of a double-edged sword in that it makes it that much easier to pick out the computers masquerading as real instruments. Overall, I still enjoyed this one quite a lot. It doesn't flow quite as well as 2000 or have as much depth as Mewtwo, but it's still a solid adventure film with some strong messages about family and loneliness, and I certainly wouldn't mind watching it again in the near future. That's it for this video. Tomorrow will be the first TV special I'm covering this month with Mewtwo Returns, and don't forget to check out my other content while you wait. Special thanks to Jan Rogalski, Rourke Tenjoin, JJJ User, and all my other patrons for their generous support. My name is Ember, and I'll see you next time.